Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Mindwalker Method. I'm your host, Tony Wake, and thank you for joining me on this week's episode where we will be looking at the first of a three-part series on useless emotion. Now, I'm not talking useless in the sense of it serves no purpose. I'm referring to use less of these emotions in order to get you closer to where you want to go in life. Now, in this first of the three parts, we're going to be looking at that wonderful emotion called blame. Now, I know many of us blame others for certain outcomes in our life. We blame them and we put the responsibility that it's someone else's fault. But how is that emotion affecting us on a mental and emotional and even a physical level? How can we overcome blame? What can we do to stop blaming others? And when we stop blaming others, how will that affect us in the long term? So let's jump right in and look at blame, what it is, where it comes from, why we as people do blame others, and what can we do about it. So thank you for joining me on this week's episode. If you haven't done so yet, be sure to click the subscribe button below. If you're listening to the podcast of this on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcast stream from, be sure to follow me along, click the follow button, click the like button, and please share these episodes with others who might get value out of the information that I share. So blame. Now, things happen in life. Many of us go through experiences, and all those experiences in life aren't necessarily quote-unquote good or enjoyable, right? Now, as we go through life, these experiences that we have, we end up feeling that it's someone else's fault, that I didn't do anything to deserve this, and this is not my fault, and I'm not in the wrong. But when we start looking at all the experiences in our life, what or who is the common denominator in all of it? Well, obviously you are. In every experience that you have, you are the common denominator. You are the one aspect that is present in all of those experiences. So if you are the common denominator, whose responsibility is it then so that all the experiences that you have in life is either one of good or bad? Well, obviously it's yours. But we as human beings, we're fallible creatures, right? We enjoy blaming someone else because we dislike being wrong. We dislike taking responsibility and being the cause for something. And that is where blame comes in. Because there's an old saying that says death needs a cause, or death has a cause. So whenever something goes quote unquote wrong in our life, what mindset, what mentality are we looking at it as? Are we looking at it with a mentality of this is something that I can learn from, this is something that I can grow from? Or do we immediately jump on the bandwagon of, oh, this is wrong and I shouldn't be blamed for this, this is not my fault, I'm not the cause of this, it's that person or that circumstance or that situation's fault. And immediately the blame starts kicking in. So when it comes to blame, when we start blaming others, we give our responsibilities away. And without responsibility, you don't have the ability to respond to experiences in life. But I'm jumping a little bit ahead. We're going to get to that. Let's look at a scenario where we might blame someone or something else. Now, let's say you're driving on the road and there's a massive pothole in the road. And you fail to swerve out and you drive through the pothole and now you're damaging your wheel and the tire is ripped to shreds and you're standing on the side of the road. Now, you could take the mindset of my tax dollars aren't going to work and the bloody government is not fixing the roads and how dare they do this, and you can start blaming scenarios or situations outside of yourself. But the moment you start doing that, you're giving away your power. You're giving away your internal response mechanism, the ability to respond the moment you give your responsibility away, in the sense of it's someone or something else's fault. They did it, they caused it. So if someone or something else causes anything to occur, it means you're always operating from the reaction point of view. You react. In other words, someone or something else causes action and you then react to that action. You're at the effect. You are disempowered. Now, when we look at how we're going to curve that, how we're going to start taking responsibility for it, immediately you start taking your power back. Instead of putting your power out there, it's someone or something else's fault, you bring it back and you say, okay, I'm not blaming anyone else. I will take responsibility for this. But now, why do we blame? Why do we go through the whole process of blaming? And as human beings, so many of us do that because, number one, explanation, reasoning, right? Everything needs to have a reason. As mental creatures, as creatures who enjoy making sense of our immediate reality, our immediate experience, our immediate environment, everything needs to have a reason. And because it's an unhelpful experience, or it's an experience that is uncomfortable for us, we don't like it and we start blaming someone else because we don't want to be the reason that we're going through that experience in the first place. Like I said earlier, because everything needs a cause, everything needs to come from somewhere. And as human beings, we don't want to be the cause for someone or something else's detriment, even our own. We don't want to be the cause for our own detriment. And that's why in any uncomfortable situation, we shift blame. We shift responsibility. We blame someone else so that we don't have to take responsibility. So the number one reason why we blame is for explanation. We want to explain why a specific experience or occurrence happened in the first place. Number two, attack or reasoning. In the sense of the moment that I attack someone else, I get to feel safe. If I attack them and I reason that it's their fault and they did it and they're the cause of this and I begin to attack them, I get to feel a sense of safety. Because as human beings, we do whatever we can to get away from pain and move towards pleasure. So if I attack someone else, I get away from the pain of it could be my fault and I could be the cause of this. And if it's someone else's fault, it makes me feel more comfortable. It makes me feel safer, which means I get to relax into a sense of pleasure and comfort and calmness. So the moment I attack someone else, I get to feel safety. Which brings me to reason number three. The main reason people blame others is for defense. If I deflect anything away from me, it means I'm untouchable. I don't have to take responsibility for it. I'm innocent in that regard. So the moment it's someone else's fault and I defend myself, I deflect the circumstance away from me, it's got nothing to do with me, it's their fault, they did it, I'm innocent in this and all of that mindset that we go through, I deflect the responsibility. Which means not necessarily am I not taking it, but I'm deflecting it completely. I don't even touch the situation because I'm not to blame. But the moment I do that, like I said, I give my responsibility and my core power to someone or something else, which means I then am left powerless in taking control of the situation. Reason number four why we as human beings enjoy blaming and shifting blame to someone or something else is because it's just plain easier. It's so much easier to blame someone or something else. And I'm sure if you've ever traveled long distances in a car with toddlers or even teenagers, they started it, right? It's just so much easier for them to blame someone else than taking responsibility for their own actions. And we as people, we do that even in our adult lives. It's their fault, it's the government, it's the world that I live in, it's the current pandemic, it's this, that, it's the next thing. And we shift blame, we push it, and it's easier for us just to blame someone or something else. Because the moment we take responsibility, the moment we say, okay, what am I doing about this? What is it that I'm going to put in and do about this in order to move things ahead so that I can take control of this? It means I have to start taking action. I have to take responsibility, first of all, and secondly, then I need to take action to change the situation. And that takes effort. Now, human beings, like I said, goes away from pain and towards pleasure, and it's much more easy and much more comfortable to just not take action. So by taking action, it actually takes effort, and the human mind is a lazy mechanism. It's a lazy thing. For me to take responsibility, first of all, and secondly, after taking responsibility, to then take action, it kind of gets daunting after a while. So it's just easier, and that's the fourth reason why people shift blame, because it's just plain easier. Reason number 5, the last reason that I'm going to touch in this video, why people blame others: it removes inhibition. Now with that, I mean, when I start blaming someone else, I shift personality in a way. I put a different mask on, I take on a different persona. Because the moment I blame someone else and it's their fault and they've wronged me in some way or another, it gives me permission, in a sense, to behave in a way that I wouldn't normally behave. I can then swear at someone else or hurt someone else or attack them or say bad stuff about them, or whatever the action is that I then take against the person or situation or people in general, means that I'm putting on a different mask, I'm taking on a different persona. So it removes the inhibition. That's what happens psychologically the moment we start blaming someone or something else. We move into a position of, I am not me, I am the victim in the situation, which means I get to act or react in a way that I wouldn't normally react because I've now been wronged. The situation isn't normal, so I don't have to be normal and myself in that situation. So reason number 5, it removes inhibition. But now, looking at these 5 reasons why we blame situations and circumstances and other people, what are we to do about it? How do we change from blaming others into taking responsibility, into taking back our power, into standing in a position of, I'm going to be at the cause of my life and not the effect? Let's look at 4 ways that I can stop shifting the blame and take my power back. The first way that you can take your power back and stop shifting blame is to just pause. Step out of the action-reaction mindset, because between every action and reaction, there is a space for critical thinking. There is a space to stop and think about things. So whenever you find yourself wanting to shift blame, and you know when you're going to shift blame, you know when it's on the tip of your tongue and you're about to give your power away, you can feel it bubbling up inside of you. So the moment you feel that, the moment you recognize and realize that that's about to happen, pause, take a breath, and think logically to yourself. Think logically in the sense of, why am I about to shift blame? Identify the reasoning behind why you're about to shift blame. Do I feel hurt? Do I feel betrayed? Do I feel like a victim? What is the reason why I'm about to shift blame? So step number 1 is to pause, take a breath, and identify why you want to shift the blame. Step number 2, reframe. Now with reframing, it's an NLP term where it means change the meaning of the situation. Instead of feeling like a victim, like, why is this happening to me and why did they do this to me, then you can hear the blame being shifted, right? Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? What else could this situation mean? Is it really only detrimental? Is it really only uncomfortable? Or is there a lesson that I can learn from this? Is there something that I can take from this that will help me grow on some level so that I'm better than what I was before it even occurred? So step number 2 is to reframe the situation. Step number 3 is to apologize. If you've cast blame on someone or something else, apologize. Now, why do I say that? And I know a lot of you are going to be like, oh, but I didn't do anything wrong. Why do I have to apologize? Again, you're giving your power away. Listen to what you're saying there. If you apologize, it's an uncomfortable thing. Nobody likes to apologize. It's one of those things, you take responsibility. It's an uncomfortable situation. And like I said earlier in this video, the pain-pleasure threshold, from where you are to where you want to be, away from pain towards pleasure, because it's uncomfortable for you to apologize to someone else, it means your brain will eventually begin to retrain itself that it doesn't want to apologize. And if you apologize and you willfully apologize every time you make a mistake, or every time that you find yourself in a situation that's uncomfortable and you take the responsibility and you apologize for it, it's uncomfortable. And because it's uncomfortable to apologize, your brain wants to get away from that. And because your brain wants to get away from it, it's going to train itself to stop making the mistakes, to stop going into the situations, and through that, you're going to grow and become better. So you're retraining your brain every time you apologize. So take the responsibility. Remember, a mistake, if you think of going through and they're shooting a movie, take 1, take 2, take 3, and a mistake simply means, okay, it's going to be take 4 or whatever the case might be, but the camera wasn't rolling. So it's a mistake. And what do you do if it's a mistake? You simply go back to the starting point and you go through it again and make sure everything is set up and you learn from the mistake, right? So that is what mistakes are for. It's for you to grow, to learn, to become better. And through you growing, through you training your brain and teaching yourself these things, you become not only a better human being, but you become more empowered in order to control your environment, your circumstances, and yourself so much more. Which brings me to point number 4 of how to overcome blame. And the simple way for that is to change your focus. Now, a lot of times when we take responsibility for everything, we can begin to feel everything's my fault, woe is me, and you go into that guilt mindset. Now, guilt is the 3rd video that we're going to get to in the series. Next week, we're looking at shame, which is self-blaming. And we're going to go through how to overcome shame and the purpose of shame and why it's there. But that's next week. And the 3rd video in the series is going to be about guilt. So I'm not going to touch too much on guilt in this video, but the focus that you have to overcome blame is to be logical. Focus in the sense of, where's this situation going? Am I to blame for it? If I am, I apologize for it because I'm training my mind to not take these actions anymore. And through not taking these actions anymore, I get to be honest with myself. I stop living in a life of lies where I'm the victim at all times and woe is me and poor me and all that type of mindset. So I shift from a position of disempowerment and I begin to focus on how am I growing, what am I learning, how am I becoming better, and I move into a position of power. So when you look at blame, where it comes from, what you can do about it, I hope this video has helped you to take some of these situations, take some of these concepts and ideas, to take a breath, pause for a moment, and think, reframing, what else could this mean? From what else could it mean? If I was wrong, I'm apologizing. And after apologizing, I need to be honest with myself and realize by taking responsibility, I'm not the victim, I'm actually empowering myself and moving forward in life. So thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Mindwalker Method. I'll catch you next week when we look at shame and how to deal with shame, where it comes from, what the purpose of shame is. And the week after that, we're looking at guilt, which is the last part of this 3-part series. But until then, be sure to click subscribe, follow me on my website, tonywake.com, or any of my social media platforms. You can find me as @TheTonyWake. And on YouTube, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, you can find me there as Tony Wake TV. Until then, be blessed, be safe, and stay true to you. I'm Tony Wake. Goodbye for now.